Hello again. Welcome to this Thought for the Day from the Chapels Royal in Her Majesty's Tower of London. I hope that you all remain well and safe wherever you are. It's Tuesday the 9th of February in this year of our Lord, 2021. As I record this message, snow, admittedly moderate, reserved, unostentatious British snow, is being gently blown about by a light breeze outside my window. An hour or so ago, I made a phone call to someone in Devon, and the first thing he did was to talk about the weather where he was and to ask about the weather in London. Several exchanges of more or less inconsequential and banal conversation about the weather ensued before we got on to other, weightier matters. Now, we British are well known, some would say notorious, for our habit of talking about the weather. This is in spite of the fact that our weather in this country is generally not extreme. That may cease to be the case with climate change, but until now, we seldom have temperatures much below -10 degrees Celsius, even in the countryside, and seldom much above 30 when it is hot. Contrast this with New York, for example, where winters regularly see Arctic conditions and summers are subtropical. And yet, New Yorkers do not, in my experience, routinely spend much time talking about the weather as such. I'm not sure that I can adequately explain why we British in particular should, in the eyes of others, seem obsessed with the weather, but it's made me wonder about what it says about ways of relating. Imagine for a moment you are at an academic conference of some sort. Academics are driven to be competitive if they are to secure research grants, publishing deals, and promotion. They are therefore likely to want to assess where other academics stand in the ranking and show how they shape up by comparison. Thus it is that at such events, you will find the participants circling each other like dogs in the park, sniffing each other's academic credentials. It's important early on to establish who is the top dog. Similar behavior is found in any gathering of professionals, from musicians to artists, the armed forces, and dare I suggest it, clergy. We all have a tendency to want mentally to pigeonhole other people we meet. This carries with it the danger of a sort of reductive stereotyping. We then see people not so much as individuals, but as representatives of certain institutions, backgrounds, experiences, and potential, especially insofar as they relate to ourselves. So far, so natural, and you may think, so what? There is there not, a danger here of our setting up barriers between ourselves by highlighting differences rather than similarities, of creating the bases for conflict rather than agreement? I want to make the case for the benefits of talking instead about the weather. The weather affects all of us. It may affect us in different ways. The snow that thrills the child with a toboggan worries the keen gardener with delicate bedding plants. The dry spring that delights city dwellers may worry the farmer anxious for rain on young crops. You can think of your own examples. Nevertheless, none of us can change the weather, and we are all in our different ways affected by it. It does not matter what our race, religious, or socio-economic status may be. If we go out when it is raining, we all get equally wet. The weather is a great leveler. It is therefore the ideal topic, in my view, with which to open a conversation with a stranger. What do you think of this weather is a quintessentially inoffensive and open question, the answer to which may lead to all sorts of other topics once we have established that initial contact. Nobody can be offended by talk of the weather. Bored, maybe, but hardly offended. And it makes no presuppositions about the other person. Because the weather affects us all, talking about the weather immediately establishes something in common between strangers. It focuses on what unites us rather than what divides us. It stresses what we have in common. As we go through life, we all face trying and even tragic situations. These might concern our own health or the illness or death of loved ones. I was talking the other day to someone who's a highly successful professional person, but who is finding it hard to concentrate at work because their toddler will not sleep at night. Things are going on in other people's lives at which we cannot guess, whether they are strangers, colleagues, or even relatives with whom we've not spoken for a while. Loving our neighbours as ourselves includes giving people the opportunity and space to speak about what is on their minds if they wish. That means not setting an agenda for a conversation which discourages people from surfacing issues that worry them. That in turn requires us not to shut down openings by starting with topics that might be divisive. The apparently stuffy old convention that in company one should not discuss sex, religion, or politics was perhaps wiser than is nowadays generally thought. Those topics need never be completely off the table, but they are certainly not the most constructive places to start conversations with strangers. They're personal, sensitive, and can evoke strong contrary opinions. If we wish to be examples of Christian love, which might, in the fullness of time, draw others to want what we have, then perhaps we need to be mindful of this avoidance of potentially contentious topics, at least until such time as we've got to know each other better and establish a relationship of trust. St. Paul talked of being all things to all people. I'm not sure that I could aspire to that, or frankly, if I would want to. But I would like to try to keep lines of communication open rather than shutting them down. And if you're looking for a non-contentious subject with which to start a conversation, you can hardly do better than the weather. Maybe I'm just a snowflake. Talking of which, but you've heard enough. Until next time.